I'm trying to log it. Way to call me out.
Hey, today's guest on Hustle Northwest is Jake Zufelt. He's the co-founder of Weldwood Marketing, branding expert, content strategist, digital disruptor, and semi-pro Disney tour guide.
Ooh.
Yeah. Jake's goal in life is helping companies find their voice, build out killer marketing systems,
Speaking
and tell.
of which, your voice just
I
came
know.
out.
It
I love
tells
it.
stories
Killer
that are
in my
actually
ears.
stick. He's not afraid of doing things differently, and that's exactly why we have him on here today. So, Jake,
Welcome.
Guys,
let's get
that's
into it.
Quite the intro.
I
Yeah.
know. Now you got to live up to it,
Your
bud.
voice is killing it in my head right now.
It's killing me too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah.
It's super rare I get to do in-person podcasts, so it's a pleasure to get to be sitting down with you guys.
So yeah, we were one of the things that we you pointed out is like things that you like to talk about. You're really good at talking about as far as the marketing topics go. The one thing that really stood out to me was the how to start your own cult. And how can that tie into marketing? Because it seems like we talked about this. Cult leaders are the masters of marketing because they know their avatar as far as their people that they're going to market to, and they know how to reach those people. So how can we do that without ruining people's lives, but turn it into something that we
A
can
good
use?
cult. Like a
good cult.
positive cult.
Yeah.
A helping cult.
A helpful cult.
A helpful cult.
Oh man. I mean, you mentioned in your very gracious intro that I do things differently.
Yeah.
And have really kind of cut my teeth in the digital marketing space of doing that. I really don't like the sort of, I don't know what it is, the mantra or even just kind of the moniker of the marketing bro, which is a very common thing. I know in real estate there's a very typical, stereotypical.
What?
Yeah, real
What?
estate.
Let's
I
get
don't know what
close.
the stereotype, if you will. Can we say that? Yeah. I do say in marketing we have to stereotype a lot. And
Yeah.
so even when I speak at conferences nationally or whatever, I often say things where I'm like, hey, just forgive me for this. This isn't going to be PC, but here's what the data shows you, right? So when I started Weldwood Marketing, it really came off of three primary things. Number one was, as I looked at the marketing space, I noticed a massive lack of transparency. And it wasn't hard to see. I mean, we often say, like, you can smell BS from a mile away. And this is just completely unregulated space. Like, aside from, like, getting a stamp that says you're a Google partner or... Whoa, my entire...
Yeah, I haven't turned it down.
Okay. Yeah, now it's like gone.
Oh,
As long as
maybe
there's-
halfway.
No, that's fine. I can still hear you guys. Can
Okay.
you hear me? Okay.
Oh, I hear you really loud.
Really? Oh, man. Mine was just cranking right there.
It was.
Okay, we're good now. All right. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
I mean, I can yell louder if you want me to. Anyways, aside from getting certifications from the platforms,
Yeah.
which has a completely ulterior motive for them, because if you're Google certified or you're Meta certified or you're whatever, it means that you're spending like an insane amount of money with them. So my entire voicemail box, I think I have 400 unread voicemails right now, and it's almost all Google and Meta reps. They're like encouraging me to like spend more money.
Oh.
So every single day I get in my truck and there's a call from Google every single day, right? So
They're like,
aside
it's us
from-
again.
oh,
We're
all
calling.
the time.
Just answer.
All the
Yeah.
time, yeah. And so aside from that, it's completely unregulated space. So how often you've been on social media and you see someone that's like, hey, I'm a social media expert, just got started, like I'm 22.
But I
and-
have no credentials.
But I have no credentials.
Yeah.
But look at my website, and you look at their website, and they list all the same services that we offer at Weldwood Marketing.
Yeah.
And they do offer those, but almost all of them are done through a white label company, which is outsourced marketing. Okay?
Yeah.
There's a time and a place for white label services, something we could totally talk about. But it just was this lack of transparency, and no one knew who was actually doing the work. And
Is
then
it kind of like life coaching?
Oh,
How
big time.
everybody can be a life
Oh,
coach?
if I had the confidence of like a 25-year-old life coach, I could conquer the world.
And sometimes it's
You know.
is it the old adage, those who can't do teach? Is that the
Oh,
type of thing
totally.
with the life coaches too?
Yeah.
Well, because it's like, and there's also programs you can get endorsements through, but
Yeah.
even the programs have all kinds of agenda to them. Most of the masterminds I've been in for digital marketing are about how to get more sales, is not about how to do marketing better. So that's a really, really common thing. So that really became sort of the starting point. And then the last piece of it was humanity. So I spent 10 years as a pastor, which is a whole couple beer story. No, there wasn't a scandal. I left on my own accord.
There was no cults.
There was
no, there was a cult, but that's a whole different conversation. Yeah, so to kind of expedite that whole thing, what it really came down to is I was going, that was really my passion within ministry as well, was like, just how do we treat people like people, and how do we do that better without the ulterior motive, which I think is one of the biggest challenges in marketing from the American evangelical church, is how do you market in a way that is authentic and transparent, where it doesn't come across you have an ulterior agenda.
It's a hard balance.
That's a hard balance of like, yeah, we really want to care about you, but we also want to bring you in and teach you to believe the same things we believe.
Yeah.
Like, that's a whole different we could talk about marketing and religion for a long time.
Yeah.
But when I got into just doing full-time digital marketing, I was able to take so much of that passion and in a very authentic way go to people and say, hey, this is actually real. And one of the things I learned early on is that if you claim that you have a mission, you claim that you have vision and values and all these things you're taught in just standard corporate stuff, but you can't show me in your books how upholding those values have cost you money, you need to remove that as a value. So if someone says, hey, I really value like women in roles of leadership.
Yeah.
Great.
Show me all the women you have in leadership.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That needs to go away.
Yeah.
If they say, we really value like quality service. Great. Show me a time when you didn't meet your standard and you refunded somebody. Show me what it cost you to uphold that service. So I went into it with that mentality. And even when I got started, it was just me at my dining room table with a laptop that I had dropped on my way to a client meeting that had a dent on it, and my third kid as an infant on my shoulder. And I had a budget literally set aside for any time I didn't meet the expectations of one of my clients, that I would be able to compensate them for it.
Wow.
Because that was from day one. I knew that was going to be a really, really big value. Okay. So fast forward a few years. Did a massive, massive merger. We became an Inc. 5000 company, all this stuff. We were in the top 900. It was 26 agencies. It was this whole big thing. And one of the things that kept resurfacing in that was lack of transparency. And I kept having to have these conversations about this. And we bought shirts. So if you go to jakezufelt.com or you look at my speaker doc or whatever it is, it's literally a shirt of me that says toxic in giant white letters across it. So we started using this phrase. We call it, rather than toxic or like toxic positivity, we call it healthy negativity.
Okay.
And we're like, let's flip it around.
Yeah.
Right? Healthy negativity is being honest about where you're at as a person, as a company, and those kind of things.
Yeah.
So it's really self-awareness, right? It's the
Which we need a lot more of, if we're being honest.
I need a lot more of. I don't want to
Yeah.
pretend like I've arrived when it comes to that topic, right? I don't know which camera to look at. There's so many cameras here, guys.
Just look everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. So that became something that we're trying to do, right? I was on a call on the way up here with some of my staff. It's still something we're working on.
Yeah.
Like any client that's listening to us here that is like, well, that doesn't exemplify. I'd say, well, of course, we're working on it, right? But it became this really important thing. So out of that came this phrase that we call marketing for humans. And I came up with it within the first 30 days of Weldwood Marketing. I said, I think that's the statement that we really want to focus on, is marketing for humans. And so I just took the time to really flesh that out and write it down. And I figured out some time ago that when you're stuck, you need to read. And when you have way too much chaos going on in your brain, you need to write. And that's become, I'm allergic to complexity. I don't know if I've told you guys this before. I just when things start getting complicated, I sneeze or whatever. I have to find the simplest way to explain something.
Yeah.
So I'm only good at two things in life. One of them is hanging pictures straight from the Bible. I don't know why I'm good at it.
I'm terrible at that.
Yeah, it's super
Well,
weird.
at least my wife says I'm terrible.
I'll sit at a doctor's office and be like, God, all the posters are just a little
You're like,
bit
can
off.
you give
My
me
wife's
just
really?
5 minutes?
And I'm like, yeah, let me just go fix them. That one's off, okay? Those are good, but that one's off. I don't know why. It's completely useless too. I can't monetize.
No, I'm just
this
kidding.
deal. Okay. But I'm good at that, and then I'm good at taking complex ideas and finding like the simplest way to explain them.
Okay.
That's like those are the two things that are like just.
Those
I
are your
don't know why.
superpowers.
They're my superpowers, right? So marketing for humans and digital marketing in general is incredibly overwhelming, and that's the number one statement I get from people when I get on a discovery call with them. Is they're like, this stuff, I just know I need to take care of it. It's just super overwhelming. I go, great. Let's simplify it.
Yeah.
Let's put it in a 4-step process. Let's categorize it. Let's organize it. And let's figure out the easiest way to do it. So marketing for humans became this very simple idea that I am a person. I got 3 kids. I've got a giant golden doodle. I'm married. You know, I've got this house I'm renovating. Like, that's Jake. And I am working to build this company and help other people. Working with actual business owners who actually haven't taken a vacation in 3 years, who actually have to get their kids to soccer practice, right?
Who actually have to pay their
Who
mortgage,
actually
so
have to pay their mortgage.
they need to
like,
turn a
they're
profit.
actual people
Yeah.
who are trying to find actual people to do business with them. So whether it was a roofer, an electrician, whether it was an escape room, whether it was a cemetery we did marketing for.
A cemetery?
It used to be, yeah, it's a converted golf course. It's in South Florida. And so I came up with the greatest idea ever for them. I was like, guys, I have this idea. What if we ran an ad campaign called 6 Feet Under Par?
Hold on. So it's a converted golf course.
Yeah,
So it's a golf course now?
Not the opposite. It wasn't the cemetery that turned into a golf course. It was the golf course that turned into a cemetery.
Oh, I was thinking the other way. I was like,
No, that's.
I
the
feel like that's just
headstones
bad.
Get really complex to putt around.
Yeah.
Scenarios. It's,
I'd be afraid to use a sandwich and just
I
like
know, dude, me too.
chip off someone's head.
No, I know. If I ever like am golfing too, like end up in the water, and in that situation, I'd be like, I don't know, I'm gonna go get the ball.
I don't know that that's my ball anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's God's ball now.
We're gonna leave that one in. Yeah. No, I mean that was an super interesting account. We were with them for years. The only reason we weren't with them anymore is actually sold to some massive like cemetery conglomerate, which is the thing. Anyways, yeah, I went to them and I was like, hey, let's do this ad campaign called 6 Feet Under Par. I think it's hilarious. Let's do it. And they were like, we can't do that. And I was like, but that's the best idea I've ever had. Like, it's not going to get any better than that. And they're like, no, we've got, like, families coming in and buying, like, $250,000 mausoleums. And they're like, we can't do that. And I was like, okay. So I learned a lot in that one. That was, like, a really early client for us. They were with us for years. But what I learned in that, too, is, like, the amount of care that they were going into, which I was a pastor. I'd done, you know, far too many memorial services. I understood the absolute like just sensitivity you walk into that kind of thing, right? So that again was one that highlighted to me like we're not just working with businesses, we're working with people looking to work with people. When we got into the escape room space, same thing. Like if you ask my kids like what was the last 3 movies that you went and saw, they'd be like, I don't know, right? But I go, tell me about the escape rooms you've played. They can name like all 10 of them. Because we were like helping these businesses sell these memory-making experiences. Yeah. And it was next level. So we took that concept of marketing for humans, and I presented that to my whole team, which was growing very quickly. And I said, hey, this is it. Like, this is going to be the thing that guides every decision that we make from here.
You know, escape room mausoleum sounds really cool too.
They've got them.
Oh man, if they've
got them. It's loves
I
We've worked with haunted houses. We've worked with escape rooms. We've worked with axe throwing. We've worked with all kinds of like active throughput entertainment. There is something for everyone.
It's tough too because it's like it seems like with the escape rooms, and I've been in like maybe 1 or 2.
We do 1 or 2.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, so it's weird because he's like, okay, if everybody goes through this in town, if they go through it once, how do they get people coming back?
It's one of the biggest challenges with escape rooms. Is replayability. There's a few ways around it really. We actually had a threshold at one point where we said, hey, we're not going to work with you unless you have 4 rooms or more. There was a couple little kind of stipulations there. We have one in Los Angeles still to this day that has 3 really high end, and they're pretty expensive too, so it's a little bit different. Also population. Yeah. But it highlights the challenge with any and all businesses, right? If you're a roofing company, you're going to put a roof on a house, and then you're probably not going to call them for the next 15 years. Yeah. So replayability can be an issue there as well. So there's so many strategies when it comes to kind of generating not monthly recurring revenue
Yeah.
in its traditional sense, but some sort of predictable revenue. So one of the things we do at Weldwood, which has been a pretty big shift, is we hired someone that really handles the organic networking side of things.
Mhm.
So we kept seeing this shift, especially in 2025, where like consumer habits and spending were changing drastically. They're changing drastically. So something like an escape room might be something that's like really like a tertiary expense on somebody's budget.
Sure.
Right? You've got all of your like, I have to live, and then you're like, well, we also need to like, pay for our kids' sports, or we need like, we're gonna go out to dinner every once in a while. Escape rooms doesn't show up on like the priority list typically.
Not for a normal person.
Yeah.
There are some people like, should I get
part of their
something to eat
monthly
today, or
budget.
do I want to do something fun? There's
Oh,
like, I need to get some
guarantee
fun.
there's people watching that like I know from the escape room space that are at like the 1,000 room mark.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I
Run the
didn't.
numbers on that one. Yeah. There's some, I got some friends out here that are extra weird that love to do that kind of stuff, but it's, I mean, there's always like the niche, right?
Yeah.
There's the people. It's like I own every Star Wars Lego collection.
It's kind of like the Frisbee guys. That
Oh,
get, I mean,
Frisbee.
The
they got the
disc
whole
golf?
collection
Disc
of
golf,
like
man.
Frisbees
Oh,
and
they
I'll
have
tell
their
you,
whole,
those
like-
are less expensive than escape rooms. Let's tell you
yeah.
that much.
But I've seen some of the Frisbees. I think they're charging hundreds of dollars for Frisbees
They
now.
are.
Yeah.
They are.
It's crazy.
I'm all
Or
for it, man.
pickleball paddles.
Yeah.
Have you seen
See,
that?
it doesn't. I don't get it. Like I don't get it. But also like I play guitar, and so like
You're like, I
me
can't
being-
judge,
Me
yeah.
being
Yeah.
judgmental toward them is like. And
Yeah.
just to be clear, like people are like, oh, that's so cool, a guitar. Some of the nerdiest people I know are guitar players. Like you start getting into effects pedals and amplifiers.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you became less cool at parties really quick.
You're like, you want to hear my guitar?
Like, I can play Wonderwall for you with 10 different effects pedals.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Brian started
Somewhere out
like-
there's a Jimi Hendrix kid with like just a beat up guitar, just wailing on it, and you've got this like multi-$1,000 guitar and barely
there's
able to.
always a cycle.
Yeah.
And it's a joke in the space where it's like you get your first guitars, you get into guitar pedals. Like at one point I had I think 13 pedals on my pedal board at one time. And then you go through this transition of like you sell the quantity and you go for quality, and then you get down to just like a tube amplifier and an electric guitar. And that's when you know you've like arrived.
When you
So,
don't
like,
need
I'm just
you don't need all the
back-
cool stuff.
I'm
You're back to
this.
the
Yeah,
basics.
So that's a whole nother.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, we get. I mean, I literally have them like tattooed on my arm. Like, it's a known issue. There's a sheet ghost playing the keytar. There's a skeleton playing the banjo.
Yeah. Well, at least you play pickleball. You'll have.
Ghosty and bones, man. That's the way. When I get a pickleball tattoo, just please, I need like you guys to sit me down like a core group of friends.
Just take
and
you
have
to the
intervention.
cemetery and be like, you're done.
Yeah, I'm
It's good to have hobbies, but you don't need to.
Pickleball courts, guys. It's amazing. Yeah, no, that's pretty cool.
I tend to take things to like the next level too. It's just I think it's the ADD. It's like
What?
hyper
You?
focus. Like, oh, I got a new hobby that I'm going to focus on with all my heart
Yeah.
for the next week, and then I'm just going to
Podcasting.
dump it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I can't just pick up a microphone and just do it. I got to get
You gotta
everything.
go all in.
Yeah.
I resemble this remark.
Yeah. It's can be a superpower and like super debilitating too at the same time.
Oh, we haven't even talked about the direction that Weldwood's heading. We'll get there.
Ooh.
It's a lot there. But back to what were we talking about? We're talking about cults. Okay.
Cults, yeah.
Yeah, I gotta tell the lead up to the cult thing, because what was interesting about it is I kept getting feedback from people being like, "Oh my gosh, this is so refreshing. Like, you're so unprofessional." Like, thank you.
Like you're an actual person.
I actually got a call one time from someone and said, "Hey, I met with another agency. They were too professional, so I called you." And I was like, "Thank you."
It's
I was
kind of like
like
the sign of the times, because
I know.
with
It kind of
marketing,
is,
it's
though.
like when people went all out, like we're going to go movie production, people are like, it looks so fake now, but this guy over here is doing it out of his house and he's relatable. So we want to watch him now. It's like,
But that's like social media too.
Yeah.
Like everything's going away from like the polished, like, yeah, like
and
all.
there's a time and a place for it.
Yeah.
I mean, the audience analysis is huge in it.
Yeah.
It's huge in it. Like, but we just did a dental conference, and our backdrop, like if you go to our website at weldwoodmarketing.com, the hero image is what it's called on that main part is
Yeah.
like an alien attacking like a space. Well, yeah, a little bit different.
Yeah.
That's Weldy. Yeah. He shows up later. But there's an alien that's attacking this like space guy. and it says like I don't remember what it says on it. It says something really impactful on it. And,
You should go check it out.
It's the backdrop. I think he's quoted saying like, "These guys save us from our marketing woes," and it says, "Digital marketing is a monster. We'll help you slay it." And that's on the backdrop of our convention banner. When you go to a dental conference, like you stand out like a missing tooth real quick.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is people come by and like, "Oh my gosh, this is so refreshing." So I'm always testing like essentially what are pickup lines at conventions.
So when you're next door to Synergy Marketing and you got yours next door to that, it's like it's night and day.
We're all wearing these.
Yeah.
Like this is our attire. And we had people come up and they just be like, "I want to work with you guys." I'd be like, "Well, that was quick. Like, I mean, can we just go out to dinner first? Like, what do you do with this?" But they would just come to us and be like, "No, you guys seem normal."
Yeah.
And that was the word we started getting. Is all of a sudden this word normal came out of it. And I was like, well, that's confusing. And then I started really, really like interacting with a lot of businesses. It was either through discovery calls, it was networking events, and come to find out, like most people are insanely normal, but they put on this posturing when they go to networking events, and it is nauseating to me. Because it's like, that's not you. And then we like will go out afterwards, after the event, and we'll be hanging out talking, and come to find out they got the same challenges I'm going
You're like,
through.
"Oh, here you are."
You're like, "Oh, you also have 3 kids because you're insane. And you also have to drink coffee all the time to get out of bed."
It's the corporate expectation.
It is a corporate expectation. But I think one of the good things that happened in 2020 is that we ripped off so much of that expectation. Because people had to work from home or people were going remote and they started realizing like, I don't want to be this version of myself. Like it isn't authentic. It isn't real. And so you were starting to see people even question, like, and this is when I went into full-time transition to digital marketing because I was like, no, this actually makes sense. This makes sense for where I'm at in life, all that kind of stuff. And it just really fed those things that I was passionate about. And we've all seen those concentric circles, right? Like, what am I good at? What will people pay me for? What am I passionate about, right? One of the things for me was educating people, which is what I'd done for years, not just as a pastor, but in other roles. I've been on the nonprofit boards, I've been on all kinds of stuff. And I went, no, this is something that is incredibly complex, back to one of my like giftings, incredibly complex, that's constantly changing. Digital marketing will change like that. And all of a sudden, Google sends out another algorithm update. And all the times you were told at every real estate conference you ever went to, that was like, you need to blog. You need to write blogs.
Yeah, I heard about that.
They still say that. I still hear that.
Yeah. They're
And I'm like, who sits down and writes a blog?
What's considered a blog, though? I mean,
I don't know.
I mean, just is it like just a quick post, or is it an actual like article you have to write?
Clearly, I don't do it.
Do you really want to get into that? Like, how cool do you want to be at parties by the end of the Because there are like categorically on websites, there are posts and blogs, and when you submit that map, that site map to Google, we call it indexing. So it's kind of like showing up, like if you had a book, hypothetically, and you went to a library and you said, hey, here's what my book is about. So here's the title, here's the subtitle, here's the outline, here's the overall description of the book, here's kind of the points I want to show up for.
Yeah.
Right? So hypothetically, if I wrote a book called Digital Marketing Sucks, A Practical Guide for Frustrated Business Owners, hypothetically.
If you wrote that, yeah.
And I were to submit it, I'd say, hey, here's all the different things I want to show up for. That's kind of what you're doing when you're indexing with Google, but there's also more than that, because this is one of the biggest mistakes people make on websites is they're like, I want to make it look amazing, and so they have the graphic designer do something where they embed text on top of images, but Google's robots can't read that. It actually has to be text on there. So there's ways you need to have an image with that overlaid on it, or else they can't find it. They can't read it yet. Well, so they can analyze it. And again, this is why it's changing so fast, is that all of a sudden, rather than having to put what we call alt tags on the back of images to describe what the image is, which is also part of ADA compliance, which a lot of people don't realize, is that the website has to be able to say and read to somebody what it says. It's the same way with blogs, is that you have to categorize and say, this is what it is. Now, blogs nowadays are not meant to be read. They're meant to be scanned by the robots to use that as additional content.
Which makes you want to write it even more.
It just makes you want to. So I used to congratulate my content team all the time. I'd be like, hey, congratulations on writing another great piece of content for robots.
Yeah.
Like, so we had someone that came to us one time. We were at a conference, a haunted house conference, actually. They came to us and said, hey, we have an axe throwing gun unit in an escape room. But we're in a weird spot where we serve, it's a tri-state area. So when you're trying to rank on Google, first and foremost, you're going to rank for the city your address is in. So for example, we tell everyone like we're in Eugene, Oregon, right? We're not technically in Eugene, Oregon. So we had to do a lot of SEO work to get us ranked for Eugene, Oregon. So even though we work nationally and internationally, we show up #1 for Google Ads in Eugene, Oregon. We had to do a lot of work to get there. So in a tri-state area, it's even harder because now you're not just dealing with city, you're dealing with state. So we had to write a bunch of content, and we didn't write blogs. We actually wrote pages, so they were indexed with Google through a different map. Is this making sense, guys? This is so weird, okay? It's a different map. It's your page map. It's not your author map.
Yeah.
It's not your post map. And what we did is we ended up creating such a footprint there, they actually had to come back to us and say, hey, we're getting calls from people that are just too far away.
Yeah.
So we actually need you to remove a couple of those pages. So there's ways of manipulating the search engine result page to get your area. And it's huge for like areas like Portland.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a lot of companies that are like, hey, we serve Beaverton and Tigard.
Yeah.
But we won't go to Hillsboro, and we sure as hell won't go to Vancouver. Right? But we really want to dominate this area. Well, that includes a bunch of little tiny suburbs around.
Yeah.
So there's ways you have to do that. I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, you can have an amazing idea, but if you don't actually put it out there online clearly, you're just not going to show for it. Just plain and simple. So I always tell people, like, look, 50% of something is a whole lot better than 100% of nothing. So if you're like, I really want to be, whatever, the 100% this area, I go, that's fine, but what if? What if you run out of business there? What if you put a roof on every single house there? What if every person in that area has played the escape room? Well, now what do you do? And now you're in just a complete, like...
You've locked yourself out.
We call it like the show hole.
Yeah.
Right? You know when you've like finished a bunch of shows on Netflix? And you're like, well, now where do I go? Like that can happen in business where you actually tap out an area.
Yeah.
I'm in one of my, we have a 3-source strategy, always had 3-source strategy. I've almost tapped out one of my sources. We're working on really, really hard on sources like 4 and 5 right now. So
what is
we're
that?
Almost in a show hole.
Sources as far as like marketing?
Yeah, just like lead flow or, people that you get business from.
Interesting. So yeah, that is a cool thing to talk about at parties as far as...
Dude, don't even get me started on backlinks, man. Holy smokes. Schema markups. Dude, I can...
So these are the
like you're
reasons
just
why
making
to
up these
hire
words.
someone to do digital marketing for you. Because that's, like you said, digital marketing sucks. For most people, that's the head-spinning things that people don't want to think about. And that's why they need to hire out for them.
I'm a huge fan of outsourcing. I was on a call with our accountant yesterday because I got more than one business. And I'm like, I actually think it's interesting. But for me to go study and learn and do all this stuff for accounting is not worth my time.
Yeah.
It's not my highest point of impact. So I've had multiple times people have been like, would you ever take the marketing director role at a big corporation? I'm like, absolutely not. And they're like, why not? And I'm like, because I can't do all of it. Like my staff is over 20 people.
Yeah.
And all of them, I have at least 2 people in every position that is 10 times better than I am at that specific thing.
It's that whole
Web
do what you
design.
do well and hire out the rest.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's really important to me. And are we the perfect agency for every company? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Right? And I've said no to a number of times where I'm just like, hey, I don't think we're going to be a good fit. I think either their expectations and our expectations were different or whatever it is, right? But when it comes to the pace this stuff is moving at, there's 2 mistakes I see. One of them is people will get on the biggest trend. So right now it's influencer marketing. Huge, right? But what people don't know is that you can just buy followers, right? So if you generate enough to kind of get traction and then you just start padding them and no one's really checking because you're buying 5,000 at a time, all of a sudden you go pay that. And I know people that have done this. Like they had one person come and she was an influencer for moms, and they had what's called an agritainment facility, which is essentially like pumpkin patches and corn mazes and whatever. And they're like, no, we actually got a ton of business from her. Fantastic. That is not the norm. There's people in marketing agencies that are selling influencer marketing, or what they refer to, this gets really niche, as micro influencer marketing. Okay, now they're finding the people that are specific to your small area who are going to have influence, okay? I'm not saying it can't work. I'm not saying that newspaper ads and billboards can't work, but it's really hard to track the data from that.
Yeah.
It's really hard to track the data. And so that's one of the biggest ones. So, we're going to write a bunch of blogs. That's going to be the thing that's going to do it. Okay, maybe. We're going to make a bunch of reels. I'll tell you right now, my posts get more traction than my reels right now. I've been testing this for the last 6 months, and I'm getting about a third. And they're really high quality reels, right?
Yeah.
But there's something about the way that my algorithm is working and the way that and I'm getting more traffic from Facebook right now than I am from LinkedIn. That's what I love about digital marketing is there's not a ton of guesswork. Like, you just follow the data.
Is it because, like, when they say everybody needs to start doing this, everybody starts doing this, they oversaturate it, and then that person that goes and does the other thing, all of a sudden they're the ones that are getting more traction now?
So you mentioned I was what would you call it, an amateur Disneyland tour guide? So for those watching, I just got back from Disneyland.
We're just gonna leave it at that.
So no, I really
I was looking for that fifth stream of revenue for you.
I haven't written my assessment of Disneyland. I asked on social media. I was like, hey, if I wrote a review, and people were like, no, don't do it. And I was like, no, I think you want to hear this.
You're like, you're saying no, but I feel like
I haven't used this analogy yet, and I'm so excited to use it. When you go to Disneyland, there's a Disneyland app, and it tells you the wait times.
Yeah.
Right? What happens is, and it is mind-blowing the way that, sociological, group thought happens and stuff, you'll see that one of the rides has a 15-minute wait, and you're like, oh my gosh, let's head there now. It takes you 4 minutes to walk there, and right when you get there, it says wait time 35 minutes. Because everybody saw on the app it was a short wait time. And then you get there and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, everyone had the same idea. So it's so funny to me. I love making fun of realtors. Realtors and marketers are my two. I just love it. I love it. And you can always tell.
It's like low-hanging fruit, though.
Come on. No, I know, but marketers are the worst. I want to be clear. You'll see there's a national marketing conference, or you'll see there's a national real estate conference, and then you get back on social media and a bunch of the content's the same, and you're like, oh my gosh, there was no original thoughts here.
It's like that whole when they were showing the newscasters, and it was it Joe Rogan that he showed that one video, and it was one person doing it, the next person, and they're all saying the exact same thing.
They get the talking points.
It used to happen with pastors. There's pastors that will buy sermons.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah,
what?
That's the whole thing.
What?
You didn't know about that?
No.
Oh yeah. No,
I thought it was from their heart and the Lord was speaking to them.
There's sermons for purchase. We never did it, ever.
Did you say sermons for purchase?
Sermons for purchase, yeah.
Wow.
If you guys want to get into a really intense side hustle, start having ChatGPT write sermons and then sell them. Let's go.
I feel like that's bad.
Oh, it's so bad. You guys ever watch Righteous Gemstones?
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
we just finished it.
Okay, there you go. See, I haven't finished it, but yeah. That is unfortunately, I think part of the reason why that took off so well is that there's shreds of truth to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about cults in a little bit. Anyways, there's something to be said about that. Is that it's so crazy to me. I have young kids, and it's amazing to me they'll come home and be like, you'll never believe the new rhyme or song or whatever I heard on the playground. And they repeat it, and I'm like, yeah, but we used to do that. Back in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And that's incredible. Some of the stuff that gets handed down, and it's not that untrue in business, right? If I were to ask you guys, what traditionally, how many times does someone have to see your business before they're likely to become a client? You guys heard this stat before? It's from the 1970s.
It goes 15, 20 times.
7 was the
I was gonna say, I thought it was 7.
Yeah.
Huh.
Where'd that number come from?
It came from a study from the 70s. Okay.
It's tough. If sometimes if they see 7 times your stuff, they're like, I'm going to block you because I don't want to see it anymore.
Right. Well, the data touch points now say it's over 600.
Wow.
So you see the shift that can happen and I know it's been 50 years, I think.
Yeah.
Right? I still use that year 2000 as my marker. I'm like, that song came out 20 years ago. in like the 1980s. And you're like, oh, nope,
Nope,
that's not
nope,
true. Yeah.
nope.
But it's like, that's the kind of stuff that's just been perpetuated from business for so stinking long. So one of my favorite things to do on social media to get engagement is ask people's advice, like whether I'm going to take it or not. Then one of my number one posts recently was, I'm going to Disneyland for the first time in 30 years. People give me advice. And people
I was gonna say, I bet you
Oh,
were
yeah.
flooded.
love to give advice.
Yeah.
They love to give advice. And some of it is stuff that they've heard from other people.
Yeah.
It's not even stuff that they know, right? And so it's so interesting to see that kind of stuff perpetuated. So when a new idea, when an original idea, which is incredibly rare and almost never exists, so when an idea is presented in a new and fresh way, that's the beginning parts of creating this whole, what I refer to as like how to start a cult, right? So getting back to the whole cult thing, and I have to drink coffee really quick because there's something stuck in my throat. Excuse me. Here we go. Cults. Okay. So I've been called toxic by a number of organizations, right?
Yeah.
And it always came down to me pushing on something that was a long-held whatever, a long-held standard or a long-held something.
Yeah.
Was I always like scotch-free, didn't do anything wrong? No, not necessarily, right? There's times it could have been more gentle, different things like that. However, in every one of those situations, the organization ended up falling apart. Which I was like, oh, that's ironic. Yeah, crazy how that happened. But what it came down to was really two things. And it wasn't always to do with a leader. And that's what I think is a misconception when you're trying to create a cult. And when I say cult, to be very clear, I'm talking about brands, I'm talking about businesses,
Sure.
I'm talking about movements. Okay?
Yeah, like Taylor Swift and her Swifties.
God, I love Taylor Swift. Have I told you guys about this? I'm like a huge Swiftie, big time. She just bought like her entire discography, oh my gosh, I thought it was so cool. My wife went to 2 Eras tours. We love it. We play like Eras tour, we'll like put it on and they'll like run into the room and come out wearing a dress.
I love it.
Like it's great.
Yeah.
Swifties is a great example. If Taylor Swift were to go away, I still think Swifties would exist, which can show you the level.
They may go with her if she were to.
They're just like,
It'd be
like
a
like,
mass
oh
mass suicide
yeah,
of Taylor
like,
Swifties.
There you go. Yeah. We'll edit that part out there.
Yeah.
But it's just so interesting to me that so what the whole like cult idea comes from is that people are looking for something that makes sense. Okay, brains are a sense-making device. So you will actually burn calories trying to solve problems, which is why decision fatigue exists. And I can say this because I just got back from traveling at Disneyland with a family of 5, right? Is that there is something to be said about your brain getting tired. Yeah. So when your kids at the end of the day are like, they're having a hard time focusing and I'm having a hard time being gracious, like go brush your teeth. There's actually something to be said about like mind fatigue, okay? So what we saw as I studied just kind of psychology and sociology, whether it was back at the church or whether it's in business, is that people will be attracted to complete ideas, even if it's flawed. And this is not my idea. I wish I could cite all the sources while we're here, but they will go toward a complete idea rather than a correct one, essentially.
Yeah.
Because what they're doing is they're just trying to take things that are largely out of their control and find some sort of system that explains it, okay? Without getting into too much complexity here, this is what happened in 2020 when COVID-19 came.
Yeah.
Is that there were stories that were being presented, whether it was by the general population, whether it was by the government or by the media or whatever, and people were drifting toward the one that made the most sense to them based on what they were seeing and experiencing. Regardless of whether it was, that was when we really got the whole, we're going to fact check this or fake news. Like, that's when those words came out. Is that people, what they were trying to say, but they didn't have the language for it, was what you're saying doesn't fit into my story, so it must be wrong. Okay, so I'm oversimplifying it, but that's largely what was happening.
Sure.
Okay? So when you're coming at this from a business perspective, what you're trying to do is to present a clear, concise message and a complete one, where you're saying, this is what your life could look like if. Okay, so let's go back to escape rooms because it's a weird topic that people don't really talk about much, right? So if I'm going to you guys saying, hey, you're looking for something to do this weekend that's fun, that's memorable, that's out of the ordinary, also that's something that is going to be a shared experience for you and your family or your friends, okay? You were bored, you were confused, you really didn't know what to do. You also wanted to be a little bit of the hero here. Like Brian's like, I want to like plan something here, okay? I will tell you statistically, we've spent almost $4 million testing this on social media. Women ages 35 to 55 are like 90% of the people that book when it comes to events, planning, and things like that.
Sure, yeah.
And
She plans all of her events.
I was gonna say we're planning a graduation party right now.
Yeah.
I can tell you.
My daughter's birthday parties, my wife plans them. Okay, like, and as much as you want to get away from stereotypes and things like that,
It just
I'm
is what it
quoting
is.
the data.
Just is
Yeah.
what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, like, for corporate events, which is the big, like, that's the big fish. Everybody wants that one when it comes to business in general, but especially to immersive experience. If you can get a corporate event, whether it's a hotel, it's a real estate office, whatever, you're trying to get them. Most of the time, the project manager, the administrator, the HR director is a woman ages 35 to 55. Okay, again, I'm just talking statistically. So, what are we trying to do now? We're trying to present a message that is clear, it's concise, it makes sense, and it offers them a view of what we call your aspirational identity. And if you go back and look at all of the most famous cults in history, that right there was the marketing message. If you do X, Y, and G,
X, Y, G.
You know, with Colts, you just got to skip the G sometimes.
dude.
You don't make it all the way to Z. You
Did
stop
I
at the
tell you
G.
I coached baseball last night till like 9 o'clock. Good Lord, more espresso. I have coffee plants literally tattooed all over my shoulder. Like, it's a known problem, okay? Anyways, X, Y, and Z, or G, whatever. This is what your life could look like.
Yeah.
Okay, and from the outside looking in, we all go like, that sounds fishy, right? But
Like, why are we all wearing purple sneakers?
Yeah.
Tracksuits.
So that's the kind of stuff.
Once you're in it, it makes sense.
I know.
Like, I'm getting to the age now to where like I see like haircuts, and I'm like, really? And like I grew up in like the punk rock era. Like we had some wonky stuff, but
Yeah.
like it made sense for some reason to me then.
Yeah.
And then I see like the broccoli hair
Oh, yeah.
or whatever, and I'm like, I don't get it.
Did I just
don't
date
get it.
myself with the outfit with the
You're
Colt?
fine.
You know, eventually
Like,
those,
how many people
those
are gonna get
broccoli
that
hairs
reference?
will have a bald spot, and then it's going to be so awesome.
Okay, but everyone said this about tattoos, right? Everybody was like, yeah, with tattoos, like when you get older, and now you see like older folks with tattoos, you're like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Like,
8-year-old grandma, like full
That's
sleeves.
what I'm talking
Oh,
about.
yeah.
That's awesome, right? So you see that kind of stuff, and you're like, that doesn't make sense when you're talking about it. And we all think our opinion is more accurate, okay? But you start digging into it, and it came down to clarity. That's all it came down to, is clarity. This is the other shift, and this is something that Donald Miller, who he wrote books when he was up in Portland. He ended up moving to Nashville. He's become a huge influence in the marketing space, talking about this concept of story brand, which is what is the story that my brand tells. Okay, he wasn't the first one that came up with it again, but he wrote the clearest book on it. Okay, he wasn't the one that like introduced the idea of using story in business, but he says as a business, you are not the hero of the story. You are the guide to help someone else be more heroic. I say this to realtors all the time, especially when I used to go speak to like brokerages, and I would tell them, I go, you are going to play a really important role in someone's life for about this long. Okay, but when they're grandparents, when they are the grandparents, they're talking to their kids, they're going to talk about the house they lived at on 2nd Street. They're not going to talk about the realtor that helped them buy it.
That hurts my heart.
I know.
I'm
I'm
gonna say.
so sorry.
It just makes me
But you
sad.
are really important.
Because I love my clients. I want
I
them
know
to
you
like come
do.
to Christmas.
But you
Yeah.
also want them to be successful.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
And that's what makes you a good realtor.
Yeah.
Is that you're going like you're not just at the end of the year going like, ha ha ha, sucker those people into a house they shouldn't have had, right? Like you're trying to get them to be successful in their own story, and you are offering them the aspirational identity of being a homeowner, which we can go look at. Again, look at the psychology, look at everything else. Homeowners tend to be more successful in life in general because they have some sort of like
I don't know what, if it's a self-esteem, if it's just the ownership, it's the assets, it's the I can hand this down. Like they're creating a legacy for themselves by buying a home. Okay, so there's so much bigger story with it. So what happens then is that as a business, if you're like, hey, I want to create a cultish following for my business, what you have to do is offer them a simple idea and a simple concept that is going to define whatever they do in that industry. Rewind back to the idea of marketing for humans. This hit home for me big time when I took my first extended vacation from the business. And I had been the practitioner in there, which is one of the things that sets us apart at Weldwood, is like I'm in the office sitting at a computer like a nerd 40 hours a week, okay? Except when I'm here in the studio with you guys. Still the nerd, but I'm in the studio. I'm in there actually doing the stuff. There's a huge movement in the marketing space called How to Exit Your Agency, which was how do you create systems and you hire virtual assistants and you do all this stuff so that you can just let go and just let it run. You'd be shocked to find it rarely works. Because most of the time, I'm the one that built the relationship with the clients, and I do hand them off. We have an amazing client success team. I've got amazing administrators that they get to know. I'll get responses back from clients. Oh my gosh, this person was so great to work with. Awesome. Okay. But it's really hard to separate yourself from the actual work. What can change all of that is getting people on this same clarity as to what we're doing. So I left, I went to Hawaii with my family. My operations manager at the time, now our COO, and my wife were in cahoots to take my phone away. They're like, Jay can't have the phone the entire time you're there. He needs a break, okay? So I come back and I said, hey, how'd things go? And they're like, went well. So we closed a couple deals while you were gone. They're gonna be onboarding next week. We also had an issue. We accidentally overspent on a campaign. And that can happen sometimes. There's kind of gatekeeping you can do with campaigns to set budget restraints and things like that. Sometimes there'll be a change that happens during a seasonal period and we just missed something, okay? We overspent by a couple $100. And I said, well, what did you do? He goes, oh, we refunded him the money immediately. And I said, okay, why? And he looked at me and said, marketing for humans. I go, well, what do you mean by that? And he's like, we're people who work with people. They're trying to find people. And he goes, that was money they didn't plan on spending. They ended up spending. So in order for us to treat them like a human in the best way possible, we knew the right thing to do was to send them the $300. I said, I love it. That's exactly what I would have done. That's when I knew that we were starting to have cultish behavior in the best way possible. It was going, well, that's really interesting. Is that the idea that we could actually come together with other businesses and create these, and this is a very overused term, but like a win-win situation, not just financially, because frankly, we didn't win financially in that scenario, right? Like we actually lost money, but to win-win just in our momentum as a company, that was so important to us, okay? Are there exceptions to this? Yes. Let me explain. Thanks for asking. When you or your company are not being treated like humans by the people you're working with, I default to this group. So I have fired clients because we have a no asshole policy at Weldwood. And when someone is being rude and disrespectful and not treating my staff like humans, you get to go. You get to, you get to be promoted to prospect at that point. Like, we're not going to work with you. Okay. We've had that happen a couple times. Now, the better we've gotten at business, the less we've had that because we do a better job on the front end of it. But when it comes to creating that cultish behavior, again, it's not just the statement. I can show you how marketing for humans has cost me thousands of dollars over the last, like 5-6 years. Okay, I don't want it to have done that. There's other ways we can avoid it. But at the end of the day, it was the best decision because I knew it hit the goal. Are we being honest? Are we transparent? Are we treating people like people? Okay, and now it goes, what does that look like moving forward?
So you got your own cult now. That's awesome.
Not quite though, and that's where I think it's interesting to be talking about this in the process, right? Is that we want to keep expanding this, and frankly, digital marketing is changing immensely, and we've had turnover recently, and part of it is the immersive experience space is really hard right now, and people are just closing their doors because they've either tapped out of their market, they didn't prepare for the shift that we saw, their pricing didn't adjust. So what we did is we brought in a business consultant full time. I said, okay, how do we treat people like people in a better way? We got to make sure their business is healthy. So the number one reason that we have churn in our marketing agency is because somebody's business was dealing with something that we didn't have any control over. And so we said, well, that's something that we need to make a shift for. So and we have a staff member who says this all the time. He said, we have to wake up every single day to earn somebody's business, even if they've already paid us. And so maintaining a cult isn't just like, oh, you signed here, you're now a part of it, right? Almost every cult has fallen apart. Right? When we think of the traditional kind of thing, right? We're thinking about all of the different, like, Antelope, Oregon. We're thinking about, like, the Rajneeshis, and we're thinking about, all these different ones. Like, a lot of them have fallen apart. And so the idea of maintaining that, it's not a short-term strategy. And that's where we're at with Weldwood right now, is that 20% of businesses don't make it past 2. Those businesses don't make it past 5.
Wow.
So if you're watching this, whoever you are, and you're past 5 years, like, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Like,
you made it.
You guys, like, even though it may not feel like we've made it, like, I had someone pull me aside in the first 6 months of running a business and said, hey, I just want to congratulate you. I go, okay, why? He's like, you have more than 5 clients. I was like, yeah, I got a lot more than 5 clients. Like, why? And he's like, 90+% of marketing agencies don't have 5 clients.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Sound familiar?
That's crazy.
What's the stats say about real estate agents?
Oh my gosh, the whole well, it used to be that 20% of the agents do 80% of the work,
Right.
but now they're saying it's
like 5%.
yeah.
Like
It's
super low.
crazy
Okay.
how many. Yeah.
So this is where, like, I have to now become, and I not have to, I get to become a cheerleader for businesses, and just being like, hey, like, anytime you're gonna call with someone and they're like, yeah, we did really well in 2015, we did really well in 2016, and then all of a sudden there's a downturn and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, wait, it's 2025 and you guys are still in business? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, congratulations, that's fantastic. And they're like, doesn't feel like it. And I was like, no, you did something that, like, 90% of businesses weren't able to do. Like, small businesses, I should say.
Yeah.
And small business, by the way, is defined as, like, a business that does, what's the number? I'm going to say it wrong, so fact check me on this, but I think it's like 5 million or less per year.
Really?
Is that true?
I don't know. That's a lot. I mean, most businesses probably do.
Most businesses, I have to look the number up because that's going to drive me crazy. But it's a lot of money. Like, it might even be, I have like one bar.
I think a lot of businesses, at least here in our area, are probably 500,000 and less sometimes. So they're micro businesses.
The micro businesses.
They are.
Yeah.
No, they are. What qualifies as a small business? Some of it has to do with staff. No, it's less than $2 million.
That's a very broad, like.
This is the revenue and taxation code.
Huh.
It's section 1705.
If anybody wants to look it
if
up and
anyone wants
just
to look at
fact check him.
A trader business that has aggregate gross receipts, less returns and allowances reportable to state of less than $2 million. Okay, so my whole point with that is, I think there's a misconception on what businesses can create a cult.
Yeah.
Is it like, I think one of the most obvious ones we can go to, Taylor Swift, obviously, bless her heart, our Lord and Savior Taylor Swift, but also like Nike. Right, Nike perpetuated something that was amazing. And if you've ever read Shoe Dog, if you've ever watched the movie Air, you'll know how close they were to losing it, like so many times. But when they started coming up with this idea of just do it, it started perpetuating this whole idea that, like, this is about more than the brand. Okay. It's really important that when we start talking about catchphrases and things like that, that we specify what that means as well. So, amazing example of this is, and I have beer hops tattooed over here, so I get to talk about that, is Michelob Ultra and 10 Barrel. Okay? Michelob Ultra had an ad out that said superior outdoor beer. 3 words. Superior outdoor beer. Totally about them. Right? It's all about them. Block 15 had a campaign, they still use it. It says, drink beer outside. 3 words. One assumes it's about the beer. Okay? The other just assumes you're already on a journey and you're just going to take Block 15, or you're going to take, not Block 15.
10 Barrel.
You're going to take 10 Barrel. I do love Block 15. No, shout out to them. You're just going to take 10 Barrel with you. Right? You're already on the adventure. You're already outside. If you're going to drink beer, it's going to be them. Okay? One is entirely brand focused, one is entirely customer focused. Then they released pub beer, which is like their inexpensive, like
Yeah.
kind of lager comparison. The catchphrase for it, cheap fun,
Everybody likes cheap fun.
is amazing. Talk about aspirational identity
Yeah.
in 2 sentences. Or in 2 sentences? 2 words?
Yeah.
Try again. I have an English degree. 2 words is cheap fun. Okay? That's the kind of like cultish language that can create an entire momentum. Is that if I'm going to go to the lake, if I'm going to go camping, if I'm going to go whatever, and I go sit down, if I'm standing, I don't sit down in the beer aisle at grocery stores. Be very clear about that. If I go stand there and I got Michelob Ultra, superior outdoor beer, and
Yeah.
I've got 10 barrel, I'm going with 10 barrel.
Yeah.
And part of it is even subconscious.
I was gonna say it's psychology there.
It's subconscious. Is that they're setting me up to be the hero of the story versus presenting themselves as the hero of the story.
Just think how much Michelob spent on their marketing agency.
So many U.S. American dollars.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to like the over the top. It's just if you simplify the message, where people can identify it more, and then think of how much money you saved on that message. Just by giving them something simple to grasp, and it's hard mindset for these large companies to wrap their brain around. Anything from like the news space. All these big companies are doing these over-the-top productions, and some guy who's sitting in his basement on a microphone is getting more views than these giant news organizations. It's a hard concept for them to wrap their brain around. Yeah, and so it's hard for them to scale down to what people actually want to see, and that's where I think that marketing shift is coming in.
Do you guys remember when Jay-Z and a bunch of like major artists tried to create their own streaming service?
What was that called?
I think it's called Tidal.
What was that?
What was that called? This is gonna joke.
Was it like almost like a Sirius type thing, or is it like a?
It was a competitor to, like Spotify.
Oh, okay.
Essentially, my phone is loading very, very.
It's probably back when they were having issues with artists and getting compensation for.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as soon as I remember the name of it, I'm gonna talk about it. So this was a massive, massive faux pas on their part, because what they did is they presented this to everyone that they were the victims. And they were like, you need to support your artist. It was called Tidal. Oh my gosh, look at that. I was actually correct. It was called Tidal. This was 2015. And they said, hey, we're not getting our cut of the stuff that we have done.
You should have called it Entitled.
It's going, See, that might actually work, though. That's what's funny about it. It's like again, like I wear shirts that say toxic.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what they did is they came out and they said, hey, we are being taken advantage of by the music industry.
Mhm.
We're not getting our dues. We're not getting paid. I know that Spotify costs $10 a month. For $15 a month, you can have Tidal, and we will get more proceeds from it. Okay.
Made it all about them.
What's the? Yeah. Not only did it make it
They
all
were
about
like, yeah,
them,
let me give you $5 more.
Yeah, exactly. Not only was it all about them, this is millionaires.
Yeah.
Standing on stage,
Totally
looking out
tone
at
deaf.
all of these people, going like, "Hey, we're the battered down hero. Like we have been taken advantage of over here,
Yeah.
and we're struggling with our millions and millions and millions of dollars, not getting our due.
Mm.
But you can come and help us with this."
You can be the
Okay.
hero.
It flopped in an absolutely epic way. Absolutely epic way, because they completely missed the mark on how do you actually do this?
Yeah.
Like how do you create a cult following here, which is so ironic because so many of these artists had cult following,
Sure.
right? And this is like, again, look at Taylor Swift. Look at what happened. She legitimately had her entire, most of her library taken away from her. So much so that she went and she invested her own money to re-record all of her own music. And she said, hey, I'm actually going to take control of this. I'm not going to go to my fans. I'm going to go take control of this, and I'm going to fight the industry on my own. And people rallied behind her in an epic way that she became a billionaire and paid $380 million out of money that essentially was made from her artist or from her fans as an artist, and went and bought back her entire thing, and everyone celebrated.
I was gonna say everybody looks
Yeah.
at it. Yeah.
And now you can listen to Taylor's version or not Taylor's
Because they got
version.
something out of it. They got new music or a remake of
And
the
they also
music.
got incredible experiences.
Yeah.
Like my wife went to the San Francisco show, and she came back and she was like, that felt like a religious experience. She's like, it was incredible. It's like, I don't even know how to describe like what I experienced in that group, right? So these amazing experiences that ended up creating, and it wasn't forced, right? It wasn't forced. People weren't forced to go buy her ticket.
Yeah.
They weren't forced to give 10% of their income. They weren't forced to whatever it was. They voluntarily came and did this because she was presenting to them the opportunity of hitting their aspirational identity. And that was to have these experiences and to live a life that was more full and all these different things, right? So then we go back to the HVAC company or the real estate or the accountant or whatever.
Yeah.
And we look at that in Taylor Swift and go, well, what's the commonality? Clarity, purpose, aspirational identity, simplified messages. And then everybody from the outside is looking at Taylor Swift. And if you hate Taylor Swift, there's plenty you can find, right? You're like, oh my gosh, these people are crazy. They're dancing in the aisle and all this kind of stuff, right? But when you're inside of it, you go, no, like there's actually something that was here that was beyond what it was for me to just get a roof. There was safety for my family. There was me saving money because it was done correctly. There was all of this different stuff. And all of a sudden, you've introduced people a story that makes their life better. And that can be done by literally any business.
So you have a story that makes people's lives better. It's called your book. What's that book called?
Digital Marketing Sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't want to write it. I had a client come to me and say, like, you're the fourth marketing agency we've tried.
Yeah.
Like, what should we have known? And he bugged me for like 2 years. And finally, I was like, no, it's probably something I could write. Right? And so I ended up writing it, hired a publisher, spent a whole lot of money. I don't want to say how much money to write the book, but I saw the return on investment. And then, like 2 years later, I get a call from one of the people that worked at that place and said, hey, I quit working there like a year ago. I oversaw 250 #1 bestsellers. And she goes, you're one of 2 people I called. I think you should start a publishing company. I thought about it for about like 30 seconds. I was like, I'm in. Let's go. And so about 3 months ago, we launched Weldwood Publishing. And part of it came from this idea, again, of marketing for humans. And I knew all these awesome people who, the statistics say that 80% of people have said they want to write a book, and 2% will actually do it. And there's easier ways to do it now than there used to be, like Kindle Direct Publishing, a couple different things like that. But there's also correct ways to do it. So a lot of people I know wrote books for like lead generation. They're like, hey, I want to write a book on like, you know, being a first-time home buyer, and then they just have it and they give it away. Okay, that's one way to do it. But there's so many other ways to do it that expands your reach, expands your influence, and expands your messaging. So right now we have 9 authors that are actively, we actually have one that's going for their bestseller campaign this Thursday. It's a gal out of Virginia. She's a sommelier. She's done travel. She's spoken at national travel conferences. She talks about wine pairing. She's hilarious. Her name's Renee. And she wrote just an amazing book. And that's gonna get pushed live. And she's got advanced copies. We ordered last night, like 11 o'clock. I mean, we're like actively in the weeds here. But she was someone that just had an incredible story. And anytime you tell a story, it needs to have a point.
Yeah.
Every time you make a point, you need to tell a story. So she's got some just hilarious ones. But what she wants to do is, again, she wants to offer experiences to people beyond what they know in that space. And so we've got other people. We've got one here in Salem who's writing a book called How Parties Will Save the World. It's all about community. You guys have had Jacob on your podcast. I've got a couple others, and one in Baltimore is writing a book that's it's really focused on just like breaking out of the normalcy. He's a marketing agency owner, but he also he does essentially tour guide for Baltimore Ravens fans to go travel to away games.
Oh wow!
And it's like an all expense, like you just pay, and he does all the stuff. So again, he takes what he knows in marketing and turns it into these incredible life experiences. We've got one gal, she's a clinical psychologist. She's writing a book called Mama with Trauma. That's all about like recovering and healing yourself through the parenting process, which is a heavy one.
Yeah.
We have another gal that's writing about end-of-life planning. She's worked in adult care facilities and memory care facilities for a long time. And the working title on that one, I think, is called Aging Ain't for Wimps. I think is what it's called. She's working on the title on it. So what we're trying to do is create a platform for people. And we want to make sure that they can get their messages out to everybody. I've got, I think, another 5 authors ready to go for our next cohort, and then potentially another 12 after that. We're going to split into 2. So it's taken off very, very quickly.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it has been a ton of fun. It's also been like an insane amount of work because we're trying to use Weldwood Marketing to support it, but we're also building up our own team at Weldwood Publishing. So at some level, it's back to square one and like hiring people to come on and be a part of it. And so digital marketing sucks became the thing that I really got my foot in the door of the publishing space and realized like this is very different than people expect. And it really caught me off guard, and I had to shift my thinking to it and figure out like, okay, writing a book in 2025 is very different than it was 25 years ago.
So how do people get a hold of you as far as like, hey, I want to publish a book, or I want to use you for marketing? What's your contact information for that?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to jakezufelt.com, that will take you to all the different places. But Weldwood Marketing is just as present online. So weldwoodmarketing.com, weldwoodpublishing.com can get you to those as well. But I hired a really great team so that I can sit in front of a computer and talk to people, which is like kind of my dream.
Yeah.
That I don't have to like drive around and stuff like that. Like, just like wear basketball shorts and just talk to people from all over the place. But that really has just kind of become my passion, is like how for other people to be successful. And coincidentally, it makes us more successful. So
Awesome.
like I can't think of a better situation there.
Awesome. Well, Jake, appreciate you coming out and giving us some background of how to start our own cult and how to write a book about it when we're done.
Stay toxic, everybody.
Love it.
All right.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.